Okay, it's all set for you guys. When you finish, we'll turn it off.
Just shut it down.
You know, actually, if you just end the meeting, if you go down here to the bottom right and click on end,
Okay.
that's all you need to do, because then we have another meeting in here right after you.
Oh, great.
So perfect. Okay.
Good.
Good deal. You guys need anything else?
I don't think so.
Not for me. I don't think.
Oh, actually, it wouldn't be the
Can,
microphone.
can it be any closer?
Sure.
Oh, it's gonna be what's on the TV?
This is the recording. It'll be right here.
Okay,
I can,
just looks like two people swimming in a great big sea.
We
There
are.
go.
Just little old us in this great big sea.
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, I'm going to give you one of these.
Good. Oh, actually, I think I have that.
Okay.
Let me see. I should be in here, my little folder of.
This. VMS, but we can.
Great.
follow it.
I'll give you that.
Okay, microphone.
Okay. So I'll just walk you through that
Great,
and we'll practice. And Mary Kay gets here,
great.
which is, she'll be here at the right time. You think that microphone needs to be turned around? It probably is.
It can't hurt, sure.
I wouldn't have necessarily put these cables this way, but
There you go.
they're easy to set up for the book group.
I got it.
So let's start.
So is this the document you said you found a little good?
Impossible.
Because that's what I had.
That's
And I'm
what
kicking
everybody-
myself. I was gonna bring the book in case you had things in there I could
No.
work up and I just spaced out bringing it.
I
So
didn't bring it in. I have it in the car, but I'm not really using it. Because that actually leads us right through, but I've got a different
okay.
deal there. So I hope I can lead you through this. It's like, this is how I used to do things before computers.
Yeah. Didn't we all?
Yeah. So. So we have three activities today. One is to create a safe space. One is to look at what is discernment and why are we learning it. And the last is experiencing a couple exercises to experience and share the practice of discernment. And we're not making any decisions at all about anything.
And as far as this training for me goes, you're kind of showing me how I might start the
Yeah.
meeting.
And the directions on that document say you can modify it any way you want. So as we get to places, you could modify the whole thing that I did.
Okay.
But this worked for me. I did it last night and it worked pretty well. So you thank people for coming, and if they don't know each other, get them acquainted a little bit. And then the first part is safety, and the covenants are a big part of that. And I had people go around the table and read one, each read one.
Meaning that this list.
This.
Yeah.
So, and so each person read one, and then we ran out of people, so we went around again. So we can just do that, so you can
Great.
walk through.
Well, this is kind of what can't remember her name that we all met with the
Oh, Katrina?
Katrina, right?
Yeah. Yeah, except the way she wrote it, I just couldn't work with it.
No, I mean, didn't we
This-
all
we
read the
got that from
covenants
her.
together?
Yeah. Okay. So, we don't really need to do this, but
Well, I mean, but I understand what you're saying, and I think it was really good to hear it in different voices
mhm,
instead of just one person, but to actually hear them, not
Yeah.
just say, have you all read this? That's
no,
not
no,
good.
no, no.
No.
So do you want to do that?
Sure,
I've really got a frog in my throat.
that's okay. You take your water and I'll do number one.
Okay,
First of all, be fully present, extending and presuming welcome. Set aside your usual distractions of things undone from yesterday and things to do tomorrow. Welcome others into this story space and presume you are welcome as well.
listen generously. Listen intently to what is said. Listen to the feelings beneath the words. As Quaker Douglas Steere writes, to listen another's soul into life, into a condition of disclosure and discovery, may be the greatest gift we can offer to another.
Author your story. We all have a story. Some might say, I don't have a story or a story worth telling, but you do, and the world is in need of hearing it. You must claim authorship of your own story and learn to tell it to others so they might understand you, be inspired by you, and discover what calls you to be who you are, to do what you do, or to love what you love.
We come as equals. We don't have the same gifts, limits, or experiences, but no person's gifts, limits, or experiences are more or less important than another's.
It is never share or die. You will be invited to share stories in pairs and in a large group. The invitation is exactly that. You will determine the extent to which you want to participate.
I should cross out in a large group because that's not part of this particular.
Not in ours, but I don't know what large, I guess that's kind of subjective.
Well, we might have large.
In
groups.
a
We can do
group.
it. Yeah, in a group.
In a group.
Yeah,
Because depending on the size of the group I lead, I mean, it could be 2 people, but it could be 5. Is that a
yeah, I
large
think
group?
just taking large out.
Large out. I'll
fixes
take
it
that out.
nicely.
Okay,
No fixing. We are not here to set someone else straight, right or wrong, or provide therapy. We are here to witness God's presence and movement in the sacred stories we share.
this is the biggest to me.
Mhm.
Suspend judgment. Set aside your judgments. By creating a space between judgments and reactions, we can listen to another person and to ourselves more fully.
I like the last one too. If you find yourself becoming judgmental or cynical, try turning to wonder. I wonder why she shared that story or made those choices. I wonder what my reaction teaches me. I wonder what he's feeling right now. My big one, I use this one all the time, is I wonder why she did that.
What, and I'll tell you why that one hit me, Peg. When our eldest daughter was tiny, like before she was even a year old, she had a thing that we called the look of wonder. And I wasn't even sure, neither one of us were, what was going on in that little head, but her mouth would get into a little O, and she would only inhale in little teeny bursts. And it was so, there was nothing else to say other than it was a look of wonder and excitement and astonishment, and it has stuck with our whole family ever since. And
It's just wonderful.
it is,
And only kids,
right? Right.
Yeah. So I added over to side by safety.
Yes.
This could be worded better, but avoid interrupting maybe.
Which I just did.
Yes. It really, in contemplative or discernment practice, it really wrecks it if people interrupt each other.
And it's hard because I'm trained in active listening.
Right.
And active listening can be, yes, just assuring them that you're listening and you're hearing, but that's interrupting.
Mhm.
So Yeah.
She'll have to set
I have
aside
to
that.
rein it in.
So letting everyone speak if they want to. And we already said,
Mhm.
no, nobody has to. Be sure that everybody speaks before somebody speaks the second time. We're seeking silence and depth. And pause between speakers, a little pause, just like, on NPR at their best, they had just a little pause between the people or the pieces.
I think it's the same dynamic when you have a little moment of silence after a sermon. Just,
Exactly.
just process for a minute. And
Mhm.
if you do that, then the person who's dying to speak, there's nothing you can do to help people who are like, ooh, pick me, but.
Right. So, I'm going to read a little bit of this because I think it's good.
Good.
The purpose of the discernment dialogue is to cultivate a culture of communal discernment whereby we engage in practices that orient us to deep listening to the sacred, one another, and ourselves. Such listening together will be critical as we seek to discern our purpose and our vision. What are we called to do? That's like those two statements. And then there are many other ways of making decisions, like analyzing numbers, doing pros and cons. Those are the ones that come to mind. But discernment is unique because it helps us go inward and connect to the spirit or God or whatever we call it. You might get some pushback on that in terms of people who don't believe in God or don't use any of those names.
So if discernment has an element of faith to it, which is the piece of this that I've learned since this all, how do people who don't have a belief in a supreme being, can they do discernment?
I don't know. Or will they?
Right.
Because the heart of it is some relationship with some higher power or whatever we call it.
Right.
So
And
I think that came up last night, and I think we need the team needs to talk about what to do. Talk to a few of those people, who some of them are.
Actually, I don't know that I do. I know of people who, and I'm among them. You know what, Peg? I would have made a great Baha'i. I believe that there are so many ways our Creator has reached out to humanity.
And continues to.
And continues to. And I believe Jesus was one of them. So where I stumble is when people say the way, the truth, the life. I believe there were other pathways. However, I don't know that I know of people, at least in this community, who don't have any belief in a supreme.
There are some.
Are there some?
Mhm.
Do we know why they would join a church?
No, I don't want to get off on that.
Okay, that's for a different
So,
discussion.
right. So the discernment dialogues are designed to help individuals and groups learn about the various ways that discernment happens and help us to practice discernment. It's a means of engagement that equips us to cultivate an attentiveness to what God, Spirit, the sacred, the holy, whatever
Mhm.
is doing in our lives and our midst as a community. Since we've been working on this, I've really had my awareness of the Spirit has really grown.
Really?
Yeah, it's like things have happened for us in this process that are just the Spirit. I mean, there's no other way to understand it. Like, are you in Web of Care?
Yeah, I'm not I used to be yeah. So I
So
know.
I put out this thing to Web of Care saying we need people to volunteer to help the elders do the survey. I got back a whole list with the match to the people in the target group. It was like, we're done. To me, that was the Spirit.
That's not normal.
That's like the Spirit saying, yes, go talk to these people.
Well, I have to tell you that,
So that's an
This-
example. If you
thi-
want to give a personal example, it helps, I think.
do you, in the kind of setting up of a meeting, do you go into naming that which is unnamed? Because like right here in that last sentence, God, spirit, the sacred, the holy,
I use them all and say whatever your naming is.
so plug in your,
Yeah, plug
bring-
in
bring
your.
many
however
names.
you name.
yeah, okay. And then
Or-
do you try to stick with one, or do you, throughout your discussion, refer to all, or what do
I don't
you,
know if there's another,
I'm just
I
curious,
don't know if there's another instance where that comes up.
as a leader, if you're talking about the sacred spirit, God, the holy, do you keep doing this list, or do
No.
you just stick with one and say, for
say
the
with-
purpose of this discussion, I'm gonna use
Spirit, I use spirit.
the spirit or the holy creator, or whatever you.
Whatever.
For a while, I used to say the great mystery. I was really into Native American
Mhm.
things. Okay,
So, then we go into the practice part. Which you and I will have to do because Mary Kay's not here.
okay.
So, what we're trying to do is in this section, this is the practice session. Going back to the, oh, I forgot one part. I forgot it last night too.
What's up?
Ask how familiar people are with discernment at all. Because some people don't read their emails. You know, some people weren't at the big gathering, you know, so they may be pretty much out in the cold. They didn't read the book, which is fine with us. So they may be kind of like, what are you talking about? So if you sense that people are not real secure, I would, can't do it here, but I would use a whiteboard, which we can be sure people have, and ask people to say words that they think have something to do with discernment. Remember Katrina did this with us. I think it really helped people kind of get a grip and get a shared understanding of what this is that we're talking about.
What if, I thought about this when Katrina was doing it. I mean, I understand there kind of are no wrong answers, but actually there could be. What if somebody puts a word up there that is along the lines of judgment, which isn't,
Which is, well, it's not our discernment, but it is discernment. And
it's,
we're trying to make a judgment about whether to go to this party or that seminar.
okay,
So I would I would say, well, that's one way we understand it, that word, but it's not what we're talking about here.
okay. So then do you put it on the board though?
Yeah, I would put everything.
Everything on the board, so you acknowledge everyone's contribution,
Mhm.
even though it says right here, suspend judgment.
That isn't judgment though in this case, because that is a dictionary definition of discernment,
Okay,
using reason or whatever to
Mhm.
decide what you want to do or what you're called to do or whatever.
so it's the two different definitions of judgment that you're
Exactly.
saying. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Took me a long time to get around to what I was trying to say, but
No, I got it. Okay, good.
okay, so the next part is the discernment practice, which is an opportunity to practice as a community. Some people practice discernment individually. I do. But this is a time to practice it communally. And of course, our goal is for it to become widely learned and understood in the whole community. So my own comments about this that you're welcome to use is as we do an exercise of discernment, it's important to go deep. I learned this by doing this in another group. It's like you'll think your first thought is a memory. It's going to be a memory exercise. And then if you keep sitting still and going deeper, another one will come up. And another one will come up, and another one will come up. And finally, after 3, 4, 5, one of them is it. You know, that's the one you want to share.
Got it.
And the main one thing about it is that it has deep feelings attached to it.
Right.
Of awe, of grief, of joy, whatever. And that's how I knew that the one I did that day was it, because it was a totally awesome experience in the traditional way. And I was just still when I remembered it. So you can give that guidance. What's that lesson? Don't understand. I don't know what that is. So I'll give I would give 10 minutes for this part. Because it takes a long time to go over all those layers. Or under, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of the STEM that some of us are working with, it's like there's thousands of experiences. Especially for y'all that have been here a long time. So invite the participants to remember an occasion at First Plymouth, which was for them personally a time that was deeply life-giving. I would stress those 3 words. Invite them to spend some time dwelling in that moment fully, in their memory and imagination.
So this isn't necessarily, this is all just on our own, everybody in their own head.
And no interruptions and a lot of all silence. So the question that I'm working with, you can work with any question you want to from the book. I know the person that did the other one yesterday used something from the book.
Okay.
But the question I've been using is you're pulling up a deeply life-giving experience at First Plymouth. And as you go, think about what it was about this occasion that was so life-giving for you. Life-giving is key. What vital values did it embody? Was the spirit, sacred, God present? I just use spirit. And if so, how? So sort of once you find the one the one that's calling to you sort of, then you want to kind of walk around it, look at it from different angles. Notice the feelings, notice if there's physical sensations. And then to me, this is optional, but have you experienced these same life-giving values, practices, qualities, presence of the spirit at First Plymouth recently? How or how not? Okay. So we do that. And then I'd give at least 10 minutes for that. And I'd say that I'm going to give 10 minutes because people will get ready too soon. They won't go deep enough. Meditation is always a good thing if you get done early.
Right.
Okay, so why don't we do that? What time is it?
I've got 9:29.
Okay. Yeah, why don't we just do that together? Maybe not for 10 minutes, but.
Cool. Before we start, let me clarify. Would you suggest the 10 minutes? This is for the person, for every individual to let memories bubble to the top.
Right.
And then start, as you said, walking around them and looking at them from different angles. It's both of those together. It's not 10 minutes just to come up with your memory.
10 minutes to come up with your memory.
And then another 10.
Then another few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can use the metaphor of bubble to the top. That's a great metaphor. Or you can use that you go deeper. And my experience was they sort of flipped like slides.
Oh, interesting.
I was going deeper and that one would go, doop, and then another one would be under it. And so I think those are both good ways to do it.
Well, and isn't it ironic? There's one coming to the top and there's one going
Mhm.
down.
And
So
you're an extrovert
yeah.
and I'm an introvert.
actually,
You're not?
I'm not.
Mm.
No, I am good with people. But my understanding is if you're an introvert, you recharge your batteries by
Mhm.
being alone.
Mhm.
And
That's you.
that's me. And people don't know that because I am very outgoing
Yeah,
when
we
I'm
don't
out.
see that
And
part.
no, but just yesterday, I had such a packed week and it just didn't end. I was on,
I know
right?
the feeling.
Yes, and it's exhausting for introverts. And by the end of church yesterday, even I'm now playing for the Calvary Press people because their musician is ill and fighting a glioblastoma. Right. It's
Not good.
terrifying. Anyway, they're lovely people, but
Yes.
I'm even on in there because it's such a small group and you're just visible and
Mhm.
everybody interacts. And then we had a barbecue to go to after this whole week and even Sunday morning. And I'm like, I'm so done. That I mean, I was exhausted by 8:30 last night and I'm a night owl, but so I get
That
it.
was it. Okay. So
So it's now 9:31. We'll let ourselves think. Okay.
just open. I wouldn't use the word think.
Think, okay.
Open
open.
would be my word. It's 9 minutes. So now we share. And again, it's no interruptions, no comments, no therapy, just listening. I'll go first if that's more comfortable. This is a very recent one. What the event was, a young woman whose name I can't think of did the prayer in the service. And it was, I don't know if you were there, it was just a beautiful prayer about loss and rebirth and hope. But it just sort of spoke to me, to my situation, to our situation, to the church's situation, both. And I suddenly was in tears. I didn't see it coming at all. I just was in tears, and I was fighting tears for the rest of the worship. So that's my memory, which is still the feeling is very vivid. It was just a feeling of being heard, like she had heard me throughout that prayer. And I think the context of it is being on this committee and having to think about this stuff, the church, and what could happen and what might possibly happen for the good. And then we moved a month ago. And we're still pretty much living in chaos. We've made a lot of progress, but it's like we lost the old house. We got a new house that's hasn't been improved very much. So, at first, especially the loss of the improvements we had done on the old house and having to do them again, was just a lot. It still is, but so the context was I was there in relation to the church, very discouraged and hopeful, a little bit hopeful, and in relation to our home. And I think that's what just feeling heard like that, it just unleashed all the frustration and grief and a little bit of hope.
Totally get that. It won't surprise you that many of my deeply spiritual moments are music related. And what I find interesting is it's almost, there are two different kinds of heart moments for me, because I am an introvert that nobody knows. There are the kinds that are really deep for me, and they typically take place in the mountains, and I'm by myself. So when I go towards thinking about memories at First Plymouth, typically there are people around. And that, especially as a musician, and especially in this church, which has such a strong music presence and always has, I recognized years ago that there was an expectation, there was a performance aspect that was cutting into any kind of sacred experience, because I had to perform. I had to do this right. I had to, whatever it was, playing the organ, singing in the choir, directing a choir. And I started recognizing that even as a participant, I was judging, which is why it's such a big thing for me, how we did. And it just didn't allow for a lot of sacred moments. And when I figured that out, I thought, how ironic is that? This thing that brings me joy, sharing with others, is actually cutting me off. So what I can say is there are a couple of times corporately within the body of a community And they're so different. One doesn't bubble to the top. One was when the choir toured in Europe and we were in Budapest, Hungary, before the curtain fell. And we premiered John Rutter's Requiem, which can put me in tears anyway. But after this premiere performance, so these people had never heard anything like this in their lifetimes because they've been so shut off by communism. This little woman who's maybe 5'1" comes up afterwards. We had one translator. It was very clear she was trying to find somebody who could translate, and this poor translator was buried in a sea of people. And I looked down at her and I just kind of, she's wearing this dress that is pale yellow and it's clear. It used to be bright yellow. There were no colors in Budapest at the time. It was gray, brown, everything. I mean, what they wore, the cars, the buildings. And I think this was her best dress and had been for probably 40 years. And it was so faded, but she had dressed up for this occasion. And she finally just stopped. And I had had a solo or two in it, so I think she recognized me. So this little woman takes my face in her hands like this, and tears just streamed down her face. I have no idea what she was saying, but she just shook her head and just gushed words. Who cared what she was saying? The fact that this had clearly reached her, that something I had done had so touched her. That was it's a weird thing. That wasn't a judgment. Oh, I did a great job. Somehow, because of the touch or the experience, it was clearly a God moment. This had been a divine experience, and she shared it back with me. I didn't get it while I was singing. I got it afterwards. She gave it back to me. And I mean, then I just completely, the two of us just sat there and cried together, and this tiny little woman on whatever. So that was definitely a human connection, which was different for me, because normally I get that feeling on my own. Another one that's different, though, was one time here at First Plymouth, we were singing Sia Humba. So it's in whatever African language it's in. And all I can say is that the Spirit was present, because the hymn books went away. We did it long enough, much like this process. Everybody now knew the words. We had Corbin Davis on his, it's like a box, it's like a rhythm box. So kind of like congas or whatever. And people, we were still in our east-facing congregation with the pews. People literally were dancing in the aisles. And some people from their traditions, you could see everybody just let go. There were no, we don't do this in First Plymouth. That people were holding hands, people were singing harmonies. The organ had stopped, the piano had stopped. It was sheer human togetherness. And there are no words. And again, the performance aspect had gone away by that time, because we were all doing it together. It was like what you hope for in a drum circle. But often doesn't happen. And I bring that one up because, bless his heart, George Anastas was our minister. And I mean, he was into it too. We all were. There wasn't a person I saw when I looked out, not a person not into it. It was astonishing. I've never seen First Plymouth do anything like that. And George kept trying to recreate it. He wanted to do Sia Humba every 2 weeks. And I said, buddy, you can't, it was a moment, but we can't recreate that moment. You can't force this, much like this experience. And that's why you've got to give it the 10 minutes. So several things I can't separate, because one is on my own, one is with one other person, and one is corporately, and they're all very powerful for me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Very moved by the little old lady.
Oh, I'll never forget it. Never. And then after she kind of went off into the crowd, I mean, I turned to Dave and I just looked at him. I mean, I couldn't even speak. And he was crying. I mean, everybody was having some kind of that going on. It was quite clear. And he had these tears coming down, and all he could say, he just wrapped me up and he said, "This is powerful stuff, isn't it?" And I said,
So what we would do now, if this were really happening, is share the answers, which we just did,
"Mhm."
and then have a few minutes to share back. So I might very briefly. So I might say what I just said,
Mhm.
the moment that the little old lady was really moving. And it's, again, no interruptions. Keep it brief.
So is that just a way to let that person know they were heard?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Actually, we could put a stem on that, like I was touched by, I was moved by, something like that, so they don't go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So then
Said I was going to take notes with this. Clearly, these are great.
So that if your group is huge, you might have to skip that part.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of the groups are really huge. If you have 7 or 8, I think you could do it in the time.
Mhm.
And some people might not want to.
I was going to say, but it's not required.
No, some people might not want to share what they discovered. Some people might not want to comment,
Okay.
and that's just fine. The exercise that I was in, where I went down through the layers,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still thinking about what the other person said. It was something I did not know about him, and the way he described it was just wonderful, of course. And I'm still thinking about it. So
What I was struck by when we had the meeting here was how connected I felt to that group of people. Even though I really only shared my memory with one, knowing that everybody had been that open to each other.
yeah, it's revolutionary.
It is.
Mhm. And actually, I can't remember the name of that song that you all were
Oh, Sia Humba.
losing out on.
Yeah.
That actually struck me as a moment of discernment, in a way, that you let go, and you didn't follow the rules. You know, the song didn't end when it was supposed to, and people didn't stay in their chairs. You know, which is the openness of discernment to experience, I think, is a big part of it. And I sort of heard discernment there.
I can absolutely see that. And with you clarifying that, that's an aha for me, because not that I'm a rule breaker, but when I came to First Plymouth, it was known for how intellectual it was. And I consider myself a fairly erudite person. I mean, I can carry on a conversation and I'm educated, but so often things went right over my head and I wasn't feeling any spirit. I was feeling like I was in seminary, which is cool. I learned a lot, but it wasn't doing anything for this. It was great for this.
Yeah.
And bringing that full circle to now, it was a prayer as I walked in before that meeting here, whatever that was, 2 weeks ago or whatever, was, can we please get out of the business mode and into and then I learned what discernment really was. And I thought,
Thank you. So now at the end of that, Sherry, keep it really brief and say that it's going to be brief.
mhm.
I think you'll be okay, but if you're running out of time, you could drop that part.
Okay.
I don't think you'll have to, and it's very valuable, but. And then the closing comes up. And what I did last night, because we did have a little extra time, was to ask if they had any questions about what we've been doing. And a real discussion ensued. It wasn't really about what we had been doing, but it was very valuable, I think. And I tried to listen to it with discernment. I tried not to pile on or, say what I thought about what they were saying.
I can see a question coming up that I'm not sure I would know how to address, and that would be, this has been a cool experiment. What does this have to do with the direction First Plymouth is going?
Okay, well, you know the answer to that, right?
Well, help me. I'm not sure I do.
Well,
I know what it is
I would
for
say-
me, but
I would say that we have many huge decisions to make. And we have faithful futures making decisions and proposing decisions from money and options and, all these heads,
mhm.
which are good ways to make decisions. But discernment brings in the spirit, the spiritual part of it. What is God wanting here?
Mhm.
What is God leading us to? What is God nudging us to? Whatever.
And so our exercise today has been to help us all get in touch with what it might be like to be open to what spirit is telling us,
Exactly.
as opposed to what our heads and our financial acumen and our
And our
business discussions,
Fear and our fear.
fear and
anger.
anxiety and
Yeah.
anger and everything.
Yeah.
So as we progress through whatever processes are going on, we are hopeful that what we're doing is sharing a new way of being open to thoughts about our future,
Mhm.
that you're going to be hearing ideas of all sorts from different places. And we're hoping that this ability to understand what discernment is going to open up all of us at First Plymouth to a new way of coming to a conclusion that is spirit-led, as opposed to just logic and business and
But those are, I always say, but those are valid.
they are valid,
And
but
they're
there's
important.
but they're
there's
missing
another
that
way.
piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
that's
is the
good.
piece we
That's
want to
good.
bring in. And that's the part that so thrills me, because I just feel like,
I'm hoping that we'll get a cadre of folks from these trainings that if it gets to businessy, we'll say, I'd like to take a moment for discernment. Just stop, I'm gonna do it. And I hope
oh, great.
if it gets too crazy with numbers and,
Let's just
He
stop
does.
and think about where we are in this discussion
and where the spirit is.
and where the spirit is in that discussion.
Yeah,
Great point.
yeah.
Good.
Hi, we're just finishing up.
Hey, how are you? Is this book club?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to solve Zoom problems.
No, do you need the Zoom?
Well, we're finishing. We can,
No, it's, I don't know how you can get more people in a semicircle, but the people at home can't hear, they can't see the people.
Um,
And you're gonna
Nice.
try to raise the camera and bring it down instead of ceiling wise.
yeah.
So it's not just too narrow?
Uh, one problem I think is the big chairs.
Yeah.
You know, get smaller chairs and you get more
People around it, yeah.
I suggested smaller tables, but I'm even wondering if you could do a rectangular table and a round table and sort of force the
Mhm.
people in there.
Mhm.
The Sunday school classes sit in a circle, but this group doesn't want to because
No,
they want
they
their
wanna see
notes
each other.
and their
Sure.
food. So, you know, if this is the way we're gonna go and we're trying to keep people in this church, I think we have to Zoom better.
Yeah.
What about,
And I know, and maybe other places have overhead cameras or they have different cameras around the room and they spend more money. I'm wondering if a furniture investment might be worth it, but I don't know.
Mhm.
could we,
Well, do you
could
need us
Nancy-
to,
Nancy Erickson's one of our best people, frankly. And she's totally frustrated. Mary Lee Anderson cannot hear, as is the case with other people. So they've done a better job with the mic, but
I did that.
yeah, it helps a lot, but not enough.
well, especially if you have soft spoken.
And you wonder if people are willing, I don't know what you think, but I thought if people sat this way, and if they wanted to talk to somebody over here, they just turn their head,
Mhm.
but their audience is
Visible.
on the Zoom. If they're willing to do that, it's a little awkward. I was thinking about it during the travel presentation. You know,
Can you
people
have
at
a few
round
more
tables
minutes?
and then they have to move around, and I'm interrupting the discussion. Just ignore me.
Do
We
you want
just
to,
need about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Don't mind my being here.
no,
Really?
this isn't.
we're recording it, so that's all.
It's gonna be edited anyway.
Yeah, we're good.
So don't worry about it. So, no, we were supposed to be done at 11 and I assume it's 11.
But I'm involved, so we went longer.
So the questions I get repeatedly are the one about God. What if we don't believe in God?
Okay.
I've gotten that one. I've gotten, how is this gonna relate to faithful futures? When are they gonna come together and how?
Mhm.
And my answer to that is I don't know, and neither does anybody else. It's gonna be spirit led.
Mhm.
It's just gonna be committees and human beings making decisions along the way.
So if you have someone who doesn't necessarily believe in a higher being, spirit, God, whatever name, theoretically, they are able to go within themselves. They've come up with these memories. I'm assuming you kind of go down that way and say, well, there's something in you.
I wouldn't touch it.
How do you,
We have to get together and figure out what to do with those folks.
so if you had
Let's-
that question, what did you do?
I said, we need to get together because you're not the only one. And the committee needs to get together and figure out how to reach out
Okay,
or how to make this fit for you or something.
so you guys, you are kind of, I hate to say it, but you're kind of compiling a list of people that maybe you could get together with later to discuss that very topic and how that will fit with discernment.
Yeah, I hope we get around to that.
Okay.
Yes, so
Well,
much.
no, I think that's good because it's,
Yeah,
it would be good for
listening
them
is
to
the key.
know that they're not alone.
right, right. And I think we can identify 2 or 3.
Great.
So, and that listening is the key to this whole process. So you might repeat that go back to the covenants and the listening just briefly and remind people that listening is the key. If we don't listen, it's not going to work.
Right.
Let's see, I got that one. Oh, I got some good suggestions last night out of the discussion. Out of the
Good.
One thing.
How
that
many were in your group last night?
was, 6 or 7.
Good.
Yeah, it was a small group, but. One of the things that was brought up was how much fun they have in Web of Care. And how it would be really good if we could have fun together, around discernment. I can imagine a creative person could think of a little game we could play around it. I don't know,
Okay.
but anyway, that was suggested that I'm just giving you a feel for the questions I got and what people said in the discussion. The other thing that's come up a couple times is that we need to stay faithful to our tradition and scripture and like that. That's like the foundation for our reflections. A couple people have said that.
That's a tricky one. Because if you're somebody like me, I'm open to a lot more than just our tradition.
Yeah, I think that'll come mainly through scriptures and sermons.
Okay.
So,
Well,
yeah,
certainly Bob
that
is,
wasn't a rigid thing, but it was just like, we can't just act like we're some other faith. Like, we don't have any.
would you rather be in this
background.
chair? Did you have to jump up? Okay.
Yeah, faith, somebody asked, what's creating the solidarity that we feel when we're in this setting? And another person said that we're faithful to our tradition.
Okay.
Like, I imagined that it was preaching. So that I really, all these questions about, how are we gonna get together? Oh, another one that came up both times I've done this was, lost it.
Any chance we could get you two to go sit out
Sure,
in the, so
we're not supposed to be here anymore.
Yeah, we were supposed to be done at 11, but
yeah,
we're way
all-
into
I
it.
have a question for you.
we all
Yeah.
push it.
Is the book going
It's
to
no
make
problem, but that way we can
people
talk.
we hire to run the show less credible?
Oh, I don't know, I hope not.
This is someone's tortilla and
Mine,
I didn't want you to forget it.
no, I remember it when I got really hungry.
How are you?
Well,
Oh, good to
That's called forgetting it.
So can you just take a couple more minutes?
Absolutely. Let's just go out there. I have a question for you bookies.
Yeah.
I was looking yesterday, there used to be where we could drop off a donation for our church library, but I don't know who's in charge of that anymore, and I didn't find a box. Do you guys know? No.
No, but I would recommend until we know what we're doing, that. It's just one more thing we would, if we,
Right, but I don't know what to do with this book is my point. I think it belongs here somewhere, but I don't know what to do with it.
is it an FP book? come in
No,
five?
I'm saying it's a book that I was given.
Yeah.
Way beyond me, but it's a tome. Here,
Give it to Eric. He likes those kinds of books, or Bob. They're theologians. They like those kinds of books. That'd be my suggestion.
It's a tome.
It's a poem.
Tome.
What's a
Look at
tome?
the size of this huge book.
Oh, geez.
TOME.
I can't even lift up a book like that.
Salvation and Christian Theology, a comparison of Protestant theological systems.
I think that goes to a theologian.
Yeah, I'm looking for smaller chairs.
Oh, how come?
She's trying to see if you can get more people around the table. What would you think about
Oh,
putting these two tables horizontal, so you'd have more of a square?
the problem with horizontal is you get this bar right
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So you only get one, you get the same number. Because you're gonna
I'm
have
gonna try a round table.
You didn't happen to hit.
a round table here. Okay, I'm gonna let you, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
if
sit
you
on
don't
the
mind. Yeah,
so that I can
just
see.
me have to stay out of your way.
Nothing, I'm just setting up the sticky rice with mango. I thought we'd eat what they ate in the book. I always like to.